There's an image that still burns behind my eyelids. My two kids, Ava and Lucas, cowering behind me in the middle of our own front yard, blue and red police lights bouncing off every window, while my neighbor, Karen Wallace, is screeching for the cops to arrest them because they dared to take a selfie with her ridiculous bubblegum, pink Tesla. I swear, that was the day I learned what war felt like, suburban style, and I never thought a Saturday could go from backyard barbecue vibes to full-blown battlefield so fast. It started so small, too, just a moment of my daughter chasing the perfect shot for her photography project, Lucas playing along, both of them laughing like I hadn't heard in months, right there on the sidewalk. They were just being kids, you know? But in Maplewood Estates, that sidewalk might as well have been the DMZ, and Karen was always perched at her window like she was waiting for someone to step a toe out of line. The second she saw Ava's phone pointed at that pink Tesla, she shot out her front door like a missile in high heels, yelling about thieves and criminals, calling 911 before I could even finish pouring myself some iced tea. I remember sprinting out, glass shattering, my hands shaking with adrenaline and rage, trying to shield my kids from her, from the cops, from the neighbors now peeking through their blinds like it was pay-per-view. The cops, to their credit, didn't bite at first, but Karen just wouldn't stop, telling them my son was jiggling her car door, saying Ava was casing her house, and staring at me with this poisonous, satisfied glare, like she couldn't wait to see us frog-marched out in cuffs. I showed the officers Ava's phone, the photos proving they never left the public sidewalk. But it didn't matter, not really, because by the time the cruisers pulled away, leaving us standing there feeling like public enemies, the damage was done. The HOA got involved immediately, email from the board, warning about community privacy, surprise courtesy visits from board members who just happened to be Karen's friends. And then the fines started rolling in. Lawn too long? $100. Ava's hand. Painted rock in the flower bed? $200 for unauthorized decoration. Trash bins out past 4 p.m.? Another fine. And another. Everyone with Karen's fingerprints all over it. She ran that HOA like her own little dictatorship, and somehow, I was suddenly the face of neighborhood decline. What really got me wasn't the money, it was the way my kids changed almost overnight. Ava hid her camera in a drawer. Lucas flinched at every car door slam. Neighbors stopped waving, started crossing the street when they saw us, and everywhere I looked, there was Karen, smirking, waving her little rule book like a sword. I tried to fight back, called the board, wrote appeals, documented everything, but it was like shouting into a hurricane. And for the first time, I started to wonder if maybe she was right. Maybe we really didn't belong here. Maybe it'd just be easier to sell and start over somewhere no one cared about grass height or garbage day. That night, I just sat on the couch in the dark, watching my kids sleep, listening for the next shoe to drop. And I'll admit it, I felt completely beaten, until they showed up. Two men, thick, necked and stone-faced, in black polos, pounding on my door at 10 p.m., claiming to be from the HOA Enforcement Committee, here to mediate. No badges, no IDs, just threats, fines. Neighborhood standards. People like me don't last long here. Maybe I should consider moving before things get harder. It was all so stupidly theatrical, but standing there, heart racing, I realized something. I'd spent weeks letting Karen play offense, letting her define every rule, every story, every whispered lie. But I wasn't just going to roll over and let her bully us out. The next day, I bought security cameras, made copies of every letter, every fine, every complaint, and that's when the cracks started to show. See? Karen's whole world was built on secrets, her pristine image, her perfect family, her iron-fisted HOA reign. But late one night, my cameras caught her son sneaking out, meeting a man I'd never seen before. I listened to the audio, words about hidden truths, about being forced to hate, about a father he'd never been allowed to know. Suddenly, all that venom, all that obsession with control, made a brutal kind of sense. Karen was hiding a secret so big it could bring her whole house of cards down. Her son was living a lie, and she'd been teaching him to hate to protect herself. It wasn't just about my family anymore. It was about every person she'd ever steamrolled in the name of community. I gathered every shred of evidence, documented every scare tactic, every bogus fine. And when Karen finally called her big board meeting, pushing to have us fined into bankruptcy, to force us out for persistent violations, I showed up ready. She strutted up to that podium, reciting her speech about property values, security, and community pride, holding up photos of our lawn, of my kids, spinning her web. But I had receipts, time-stamped photos, police reports, audio recordings, everything. I laid it all out for the board, for the neighbors who'd been too scared to cross her. And then I dropped the real bomb, evidence of her using private muscle to intimidate, and the secret she'd been hiding from her own family. I didn't have to say the details, just hinted enough for her son to know, for the board to realize what kind of monster had been steering their ship. Watching Karen's face go from smug to ashen, watching the room shift, seeing her husband finally look at her like he was seeing a stranger. That was it. The tide turned. The HOA stripped her of every committee, every ounce of authority. The fines disappeared. Neighbors stopped avoiding us. And Karen? She shriveled, retreating behind her blinds, the pink Tesla collecting dust like a monument to her downfall. Even the people she thought were her friends abandoned her. In the end, there was no big apology, no parade, just the silence of a woman who'd built her kingdom on exclusion and found herself utterly, beautifully alone. And for the first time in months, I felt like we finally belonged right where we were. No matter what color the car in the driveway was, no matter who tried to say otherwise. You know, sometimes the only way to beat a bully is to hold up a mirror and let the truth do the talking. That's how we won, quietly, thoroughly, and with our heads held high. If you let fear or bullies define your life, you lose. Stand your ground and fight back. That's the lesson.